Okay, I've got my pet peeves out of the way. Let's look at messaging, and these are the blue cards. Tips 7 through 15. Tips 7 through 15. We're not writing yet. We're just we're gathering information when we're talking about messaging, and we're talking to the client and trying to figure out what we're going to communicate in our radio commercial. A little bit of a formula too in these messaging tips. The number 7 tip, but the number one in the messaging category is pose a problem. I always try to ask myself, what's the problem that I want to communicate to the listener? I did a commercial years ago for a health plan in Northern California, and the gist of their commercial was they didn't have forms. So the scenario that I created for this particular commercial was the guy going in and being handed form after form after form after form that he needed to fill out. So that was the problem that I was posing. And that's what you need to look for too when you're talking to a client. What's the problem? What's the question that you're raising in the mind of the listener that is going to grab their attention and set up the next tip, which is tip number 8, second in the messaging, supply a solution. Of course, you've got the solution. You're the client, you're the advertiser. What's the solution to the problem? And you want to explain how your particular service or your particular product meets their problem or solves their problem. So, bring up a problem, pose a problem, and then offer a solution. Seems pretty simple. Tip number 9 is focus on one thing. Focus on one thing. So many times, advertisers, they've got 60 seconds, they've got 30 seconds, but 60 seconds, they want to put everything in the kitchen sink in that radio commercial. And what you need to do is you need to focus on one thing for that particular radio commercial. It gives you the opportunity, as we get into concepting and script writing, it gives you the opportunity to build on something. If you can focus on one thing. In fact, I'm going to keep tip number 9 out, and we're going to come back to it later on. But try and stay away from laundry lists. Those get a little bit, nobody likes to listen to a laundry list for 60 seconds. Tip number 10 seems obvious, but call to action. Give them a call to action. What do you want the listener to do? Is it purchase the product? Is it to come in? Is it to make a phone call? Is it to schedule an appointment? You want to tell people, be upfront. What do you want them to do? And if you can, give them a deadline. If it's appropriate, give them a deadline. Tip number 11 is submit evidence. That means giving the listener facts or evidence or testimonials, something that communicates how your particular problem is being solved and you've got the evidence to support it. So when it's appropriate and when it's possible, submit the evidence. And as a warning, don't stretch the truth. Just give them the proper evidence and don't stretch the truth. Claims are kind of dangerous. Tip number 12 is know the competition. Again, we're in the messaging category, so we're trying to look at what we do and what the competition does, and you can be able to know what the competition is, what your unique selling proposition is, and how are you positioned against the competition. And you want to be able to address those in your radio commercial. Tout your unique advantages. Seems obvious, but it's just a quick reminder. Tip number 13 is pop the puffery. These days, listeners, they're wary of claims, and they're good at being able to see through things, more so than they used to be. And I think you've got to be careful that you don't build something up and you don't mislead and overstate in such a way and overpromise that you lose some credibility with your clients and your listeners. So just tell the truth and only tell the truth. And as a side note, be careful about disclaimers. I heard a disclaimer the other day, and it was a gambling ad, and the ending, the disclaimer came on, and it must have been 15 dBs lower in volume than the rest of the spot. In fact, my question was, is that even legal? Well, to me, that raises questions in my mind. As a listener, the bells go off. So, along with popping the puffery and the claims, be careful on your disclaimers as well. That comes across to me as dishonest. Tip number 14 is give up something. You can't be number one in every category. You can't do everything for everybody, and be willing to be able to concede something if that's possible. It may not fit in, but if you have the opportunity to put in a concession, I think it shows you're focused on earning the listener's business. So that's tip number 14. give up something. And tip number 15 is make a promise. If there is an opportunity for you to give some kind of a guarantee or a promise, a 30-day guarantee, I heard a commercial the other day, they had extended the warranty to a 10-year warranty. Whatever it may be that you can promise how your service or your product solves a problem, fills a void, is there a way that you can make it stand out by offering a promise? So those are my messaging tips that you meet with the client and you discuss those various things. And that gives you the opportunity to be able to focus in, and we're going to talk about concepting next. How do you come up with a great radio concept that meets the needs of the message? Okay, that's coming up next.